and welcome back to my channel, Rita Stories. I'm Rita. So if you've been following my channel, you'll know that I am pregnant with my first baby and we are super excited. I have been documenting my experiences and my pregnancy journey with you. I had previously done a first trimester summary, which I will link in this corner. I've also done a second trimester video, but today this is the third and final trimester summary video. So I've been noting down week by week all the symptoms that I've experienced, good and bad, of being pregnant and what it's like and how I've found my third trimester. So I wanted to share that with you. According to NHS guidelines, your third trimester starts from week 28 and runs right up until your baby comes. So that could be any time from week 37, which they class as full term, or week 40, which is typically your due date, or up to week 42 if baby comes a little bit later. So I am currently week 40 now and baby hasn't come yet, obviously, but I wanted to quickly sit down with you and chat through how I found my third trimester before baby comes and before things get a bit hazy. So sit down, have a cup of tea, and I will share how I've experienced my third trimester. So starting at the beginning of your third trimester, as mentioned, it starts at week 28. So from week 28, I experienced swollen ankles for the first time in pregnancy. Hadn't experienced it at all before now, and it was something that I wasn't really expecting. I don't know what brought it on. It was kind of unexpected. My ankles just blew up one day, and I kept on telling my partner, and I had to explain to him what cankles were, because I kept on referring to my swollen ankles as cankles. But they were quite big and they were quite swollen, so I'd never seen my body part swell up like that before. So that was quite concerning. I did have an appointment with my midwife that week, and so I kind of brought it up in a conversation. She kind of checked me through and she said it was fine. The main concern is if you experience swollen ankles or wrists or fingers which are uneven from your left side to your right side, as that could be an indication that something more serious is happening. But for me, my swollen ankles were fine. And actually they just kind of went down at their own accord, I think about 2 weeks later, possibly not even 2 weeks, probably a week and a bit later, they kind of went back down to their original size. So that was rather peculiar. Continuing on with week 28, I noticed that my Braxton Hicks had increased in terms of frequency and also the duration that I was experiencing them. So in the second trimester, I would have a Braxton Hicks and that would last maybe like 40 to 60 seconds, about a minute. And at this point, my Braxton Hicks, I felt, were lasting a little bit longer and they were a little bit more intense, but not painful in any way, and they definitely were not contractions. Also, I noticed that the baby was moving significantly more during the evenings. There's a lot more punching and kicking as I was trying to get some downtime and kind of get to rest and get to bed in the evening, so that was great. So moving on to week 29, I noticed that this is the week that I had less of an appetite, and when I did eat anything, I would get fuller much quicker. I wouldn't need my normal portion size to fill me up. I would be having significantly less food. And I think it's just as the baby was growing and my stomach was decreasing in size, it just meant that I couldn't eat so much. But instead I was probably eating smaller meals but more frequently, which is something that midwives and research online says that you should do as you kind of progress through to the later stages of pregnancy and your baby's getting bigger. I also noticed that I was getting muscle cramps through the evening, and more so during bedtime actually. So I would wake up from sleeping and I would need to stretch out my calves. They'd always be in my calves, and I don't know if that's because I'm carrying extra weight, and so throughout the duration of the day of me walking around and things like that, that in the evening when I was resting, that my muscles were just kind of cramping up due to the extra added weight. I also noticed that I was beginning to become a lot more fatigued and a lot more tired, had a bit more breathlessness from about week 29 onwards, and again just the continuation of Braxton Hicks. Week 30 I had difficulty sleeping. I also had to start sleeping on my side. Normally speaking, I always sleep on my back, and speaking to the midwife, she said it was still fine to do up until about week 30, and then from about week 30 you really kind of need to be sleeping not on your back and move to your side. So I was beginning to use a lot more pregnancy pillows, and I was just kind of trying to find out what worked for me, placements of pillows, how many pillows, and I think with all of that I experienced a lot of interrupted sleep as I was kind of getting used to this kind of new positions of sleeping. I also noticed that I had lower back pain. I think again with the baby growing bigger, my posture must have changed, and so I was putting maybe more strain on my lower back, and so that was causing slight tenderness and pain there. Moving on to week 31, I had a doctor's appointment or a consultant scan, and they said that my baby was measuring a little bit smaller than your average. So in your maternity packs they give you a growth chart, and especially towards the end with each scan they measure the head circumference, the femur bone, the spine, just to take measurements of the baby. And for us, our baby was measuring roughly about 20 percentile, which is definitely on the lowest end of things, which means out of 100 babies born, measuring all at week 31, from smallest to largest, our baby ranks number 20, with 1 being the smallest and 100 being the largest. So our baby was definitely on the smaller end of the scale, but the consultants and the midwives didn't seem too concerned at this point, which is great, but still hearing that as a new expectant mum is kind of worrying. So I came home after that appointment and spent probably majority of that week trying to research online different growth charts for different ethnic minorities in different countries, and seeing how the baby's measurements fared in correlation to these other growth charts. But I couldn't really find anything online. There wasn't a lot of information. I think to have one sweeping UK average growth chart can be a bit misleading, which caused me to worry just because I am quite petite. I am probably smaller framed than the UK average woman, and my partner Peter, he's again not a big guy either, so it would make sense for our baby to kind of sit on the smaller end of the scale, but we didn't know if we should be concerned at this point. But with the research that I had done, there wasn't a lot out there, so we couldn't really do anything. We just had to take the consultant's word that they weren't worried and everything was fine, so that's all that we could do. But that was one of the key things that happened in week 31 for us. Moving on to week 32, I noticed that I was getting very thirsty throughout the night. I don't know if that was because the baby was just kind of taking more of my fluids and I just needed to drink more, but also the muscle cramps that I experienced in my legs, as mentioned in previous weeks, continued. I also started having bleeding gums, nothing serious, but I did notice that my gums were definitely sensitive and sore when I was brushing my teeth, and so I made sure to go a little bit more gentle on them and just be a bit more careful when flossing and doing all those things. Moving on to week 33, the lower back pain continued. I was noticing that because of the weight of the baby in my uterus, I was beginning to kind of roll in and out of bed, which is actually something that the doctors and midwives advise as you progress through to the later stages of your pregnancy. Just with the weight, you don't want to be using your stomach muscles too much at this stage and causing a strain on your abdomen. So it's definitely rolling in and out of bed. I was using the bathroom a lot more throughout the evenings. Again, with the baby getting bigger and sitting on the bladder, I was definitely using the bathroom a lot more frequently. Moving on to week 34. This is the week I started perineal massage. It wasn't something that I enjoyed whatsoever, but it is advisable to do perineal massage if you want to try to avoid tearing during labour, and that is something I definitely want to avoid at all costs because it sounds so painful. So I started doing perineal massage. I asked the midwife if it was safe to do so from about week 34, and she said it was. She advised on what oils and lubricants I could be using, techniques I should be doing, and so I started that in week 34. The best place to do it, I would advise, would be in the bath. It's just when you're probably a lot more relaxed and your muscles are relaxed with the warm water, your skin is a lot more soft. So definitely, if that's something that you guys want to do, probably start off in the bath and ease into it for sure. From week 34, I also started hypnobirthing. I have done a full video on the hypnobirthing digital pack that we purchased, and I'll make sure I'll link it in that corner. The pack that we got is called The Positive Birth Company by a lady called Siobhan Miller, and we really enjoyed the course. My partner and I both listened to this, and we made sure to listen to it every evening, chapter by chapter. I think there was about 5 or 6 chapters. Some chapters are longer than others, but it was really informative, and so we found it really helpful. The pack that we got also included some audio tracks, and so when I was doing my perineal massage and when I was just getting ready for bed, I made sure that I listened to the audio tracks every evening just to make sure that I was in a good, positive headspace, and I wanted to make sure that I continued that through until the end of my pregnancy, until labour essentially. So moving on to week 35, this is the week that I noticed that my breasts felt definitely fuller and more tender. My nipples had become more sore as well. So I think this is essentially when my body felt like it was kind of gearing up to get ready for the arrival of the little one. I also had experienced some hormonal spots on my face. I just had a couple of spots. I think it was like on my chin area. And so yeah, that's definitely something which isn't my normal, but I think just because of the changes in hormones, it just kind of affected my body in that way. And then moving on to week 36, this is the week that I started getting sharp bladder pains. I don't know if the baby was just kind of situated and sitting on my bladder in a funny place, but I was getting like sharp pains in my bladder, and it was rather uncomfortable, but they would come and go quite quickly, so it wasn't like a continued pain over a long duration. It was just like short, sharp bursts of pain, very random. Spoke to the midwife about that, but she didn't seem like it was something to be concerned about. She just again mentioned that with the baby being bigger now, it's just probably the weight and sitting on my bladder, and potentially the baby had dropped at this point, and so again putting more pressure on my bladder. So moving on to week 37, and week 37 is when you're classed as full term, so that was really exciting just to know that if baby was to come from week 37, the baby would be kind of safe. Most of the development and growing had already been done at this point, and so that's quite nice to know that there shouldn't be much complications if baby came early. But from week 37, I noticed that my belly button had turned from an innie to not quite an outie. It was kind of at that in-between stage whereby essentially it had become flat. My belly button had stretched out to the point that it wasn't an innie, it wasn't an outie, but it was just flat against the rest of my bum. So that was interesting. It actually felt quite strange because where the belly button had been an innie before, having been stretched out, it was just really, really sensitive. And so when I was wearing certain clothes, t-shirts, leggings, and my belly button would rub against fabrics, it just felt very, very different. It felt really, really strange. I don't know if anyone else experienced this. Let me know if you did or if it's just me and I'm just a bit weird. I also, from week 37, experienced more acid reflux. My breasts had become fuller, and I had noticed in week 37 that my colostrum had come in. So I was taking a shower and cleaning myself, soaping myself, and I noticed that my breasts had hard yellow jelly bits in the nipple, and when I looked at it further, I had noticed that it was actually colostrum. So what I did, I actually had a midwife appointment that week, so I asked the midwife for syringes so that I could harvest my colostrum. So that is a really good advice, because you can harvest your colostrum and store it in the syringes, freeze it, so that when you do go into labour, the advice is that you take these frozen colostrums with you, so that if baby has any problems latching, then you can still feed the colostrum through the syringes. I was continuing with my perineal massage, and my Braxton Hicks had become a lot more intense and a lot more frequent. So moving on to week 38, I definitely was experiencing weird vivid dreams. I don't know if that's because your mind is gearing you up for labour or you're just a bit anxious and a bit worried. And I was also snoring. My partner mentioned this a few times to me during this week and actually ended up sleeping in our spare room because he said my snoring was really, really bad and he couldn't get to sleep because I was snoring so loudly. So I was not sleeping very soundly, and in turn my partner was not sleeping very soundly either. I continued to have acid reflux. I had a bit of an upset tummy as well. I don't know what that was. I just felt like there was a few days where my stomach just felt a bit topsy-turvy and it just felt really unsettled. Then moving on to week 39, so that was last week for me, I had spots on my face. These are just hormonal spots, just changing hormones as we kind of gear up to the due date. The vivid dreams and the snoring continued. Braxton Hicks again was more frequent and had intensified. I was waking up a lot more throughout the evening to use the bathroom, just where the baby was kind of resting on my bladder. I needed more frequent trips to the bathroom. And the other thing, which was quite peculiar, was that I was getting very, very hot throughout the night. So while sleeping in bed, I would actually be sweating. And that's something that I don't normally experience. Generally speaking, my body runs cold. I'm never ever hot, I'm always, always cold. And so I think it's probably like a hormonal shift in my body as we kind of approach the due date. But that was definitely something that I don't feel like people mention that. And I don't know if that's a common symptom of pregnancy, especially towards the end of pregnancy, or whether it's just my body doing weird things. So this leads me on to week 40, which is this week. So my week 40 started a few days ago, and essentially it's just the continuation of a lot of the symptoms I mentioned previously. But just quickly to recap, it would be feeling hot through the night, being a bit sweaty through the night, vivid dreams, snoring, interrupted sleep, increased frequency of needing to use the bathroom, experiencing more Braxton Hicks frequently, and the intensity of the Braxton Hicks had increased as well. So this is where we're up to. That wraps up this video. As mentioned, I am in my 40th week of pregnancy, so baby should be coming any moment now. I haven't experienced any signs of labour as yet, but you never know. The next video could be introducing our baby, or it could be our labour story, or it could be a continuation of this in terms of talking about week 41 or week 42 weeks of pregnancy. I'll have to keep you guys updated on how I get on with that. So for now, this wraps up this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Give me a like, give me a thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell if you want to be updated with how things go with the rest of this pregnancy and with the birth of our little one. But until the next video, I love you and leave you. See you guys next time. Bye!